All right. I have 2 dance moves, and you just saw them. That's not bias. That is the truth. That's it. Pretty lame middle-aged dude. Okay, so wouldn't it be great if there was no bias and we just had this clean slate and we always had all the available information that was necessary to make all the best decisions for ourselves personally, professionally, and with our business? But that's not necessarily the case. So what we're going to talk about today may make some people that you know, maybe personally, a little uncomfortable. You may have an intimate relationship with that person. They may have been in the shower with you this morning. How many of you showered alone? Okay. You get what I'm saying. All right, so here we go. Here's the challenge. We are blinded to almost all the bias that exists. Blinded. We think that we have this neutral slate, but that's simply not the case. So almost everything that happens, I mean, look at this. We receive 11 million bits of information every moment, 11 million bits. But we can only process consciously 40 bits. That's not much. So a lot is under the radar. We're completely unaware. And because of that, we form opinions and have thoughts and biases, and we limit our capability and our ability to succeed at the highest level because we think we have all the information that's necessary, but we don't. So here's my goal for this next half hour or so, and my wish for you is that I want you to become consciously aware of your unconscious bias. That may sound a little weird, right? Consciously aware of your unconscious bias. In other words, when you slow down and pause, and plus the information you're going to learn here, you'll be aware of the things that have been running past you and into you and through you to persuade you, perhaps to your detriment. Never a good thing. So, this is a distortion pedal. Any musicians out there? Yeah. I played guitar for a while. My neighbors didn't like it. So, what happens when we have bias of distortion? That's when we're not aware of any of the bias that exists. And basically, what happens when you have distortion? You guys like rock, right? What happens when they turn up the distortion on an electric guitar? A lot of feedback, a lot of noise. And then there's also a button, you musicians out there will know, that says clean. You can turn it to clean, where it just has a clear, pure sound. And you get the true harmonics of the vibration of the guitar, in this case. And you understand what's really happening with the guitar. But when you turn up the distortion, it's kind of cluttered. And that's what happens with bias. It doesn't allow us to completely understand what's happening in our world. And because of that, sometimes we're not nice to people. Sometimes we make poor decisions. Sometimes it adversely affects our relationships. And so the objective here is for you to be consciously aware of your unconscious bias. Can we avoid bias? Would that be cool, huh? That'd be awesome. But even after all this training and all my research, and after you applying everything you're going to learn here, you will still have some bias. Or I mean, not you, but the other people. Because you're not biased. What was I thinking? Jeez, forgive me. What happens when we have too much bias? Our minds narrow. How many of you know someone who may be like this? But not you. I mean, someone else. Anyone? Maybe someone you're related to with DNA? Possibly? So here's what you can do to reduce the likelihood of bias. Stop. Pause. Gather more information from a wide variety of sources. We're going to talk about that. Think about it. And then act accordingly. I want you to respond rather than react. When you react, it's fast. It's more of the primitive brain. When you pause and respond, after you reflect, after you gather information from as many different sources as possible, there's less bias, but it doesn't mean it goes away completely. Oh, this is cool. Some double helix DNA. I say that because I'm biased, and it makes me feel important to say double helix. Makes me sound smart. So here's the thing. What's great is I think there's been 2 or 3 other speakers who have referenced the work of Dr. Bruce Lipton, The Biology of Belief. If you didn't, yes, I know. Dude's amazing. If you haven't, I know. He should be here. Get his book, The Biology of Belief, one of the most important books you can ever read. So his work is in the pioneering, or he is a pioneer in the field of epigenetics. So the thing with epigenetics is, this is a very high-level overview, but we are not just evolved from our environment, but from the stimulus and our interpretation of the stimulus of our environment. And that begins in the mother's womb. See, what happens with epigenetics in the mother's womb, for this example, there's many other aspects to it, but the mother is receiving signals from the outside world, and then the mother's body interprets that information. Danger, fear, anxiety, toxicity, whatever it is. Through the cell membrane of the developing fetus, it interprets that data and embeds that into the cells of the fetus. Because with epigenetics, the fetus, as it grows, wants to be able to adapt into this new environment. It wants to be able to survive in the environment. It wants to be okay in the environment. So it's interpreting those signals of the mother about the environment, and that becomes part of the signature and the interpretation of the environment by the baby, so it can survive in this new environment. So that's a mechanism. So you've probably heard, boy, that baby, there's no bias, there's no prejudice. The baby comes out, and it's a clean slate. Not true. It's not true. Because of the interpretation of the environment, the absorption of that interpretation through the cell membrane of the developing fetus, there's already an imprint that exists. So that would be a nice notion that there's a clean slate. Let's just say it's cleaner than it's like its cleanest moment. Let's put it that way. But over time, more information becomes available to that growing child, and then these other biases come into existence. However, while it's developing as a fetus, it's developing getting all these signals and becoming a biased individual because of how the mom is interpreting the environment. It's not the environment, it's the interpretation of the environment, and that creates cellular change and bias. Crazy stuff. I love this. Don't confuse me with the facts. My mind's already made up. You may have experienced this having a political argument with someone on Facebook. Oh yeah, we're going there. We are, oh yeah. How many days to go? So yeah, we are gonna talk about that. So if the person next to you is a little squeamish, but not you, you know why. So the reason people get upset with this is because of what's called, it's awesome, cognitive dissonance. That's that unpleasant feeling you have when you have a very strong, passionate emotion attached to what you believe. And someone comes up with contradictory information, and it doesn't sit well with you. Has anyone ever experienced that? That's because you're human. Congratulations. That's awesome. That's just the way it is. Cognitive dissonance. So it's normal. It's to be expected. But here's the thing. You want to become aware. So if you notice you're becoming tense, overly argumentative, it's kind of like when you have one of those political debates, maybe, the ones we shouldn't have, but yes, we do, okay. And you get to a certain point, and then maybe you unfriend someone. Has that happened? You were experiencing cognitive dissonance. Or maybe they were, if they unfriend you. What you were presenting to them was bias against their current reality. So if you notice that happening, and you notice that tense feeling, that uneasy feeling when someone brings in new information, pause and reflect, gather more information, and see if there is additional merit on the other side of the argument or the perspective. Blind spot bias, this is really, really interesting. So we judge other people's bias by their behaviors and actions. It's from an observer perspective, right? We're observing someone's bias. When it's us, it's bias based on our internal feelings. I feel this way. I feel compelled. I feel angry. I feel frustrated. I feel lost. I feel hurt. It's an internal feeling because of the bias that we are perceiving through our interpretation of the stimulus and the environment. Happens as an adult as well. But for other people, we don't know what they're feeling inside. We only can observe it from the outside. Think about it from a medical perspective. When you go to the doctor, they say, well, what symptoms do you have? A symptom is something that the person is experiencing inside. But a sign that the doctor looks for is through observation from an observer perspective. So a symptom is internal and a sign is external. It happens throughout our life in every imaginable capacity. Recency bias. This happens a lot in politics. We place more merit on data and information, which is most recent. Why would we do that? Why would we do that? Why would we care if something is more recent or not? My research leads me to believe, and I did as much non-biased research as possible. It's never perfect. That if something is near to us, proximal in time, we feel that it affects us more. There's more of a direct relationship with what it can do to us, positively or negatively. It's recency bias. So this is going to be fun. Hey, Mike, can you come back out here? We're going to do an experiment. We're going to do something up here. He doesn't know what I'm going to do yet. And then you get to do this as well. Okay, come on up. He's doing a good job, you guys. Yeah. All right, so...
You're not going to make me squawk like a chicken or anything, are you?
Twice. So here's what we're going to do. Just observe for a second. How's it going?
Good.
Are you enjoying Thrive?
I'm loving Thrive. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, cool.
How are you doing?
I'm good. What's up?
How you doing?
I'm good.
What's up?
I'm enjoying Thrive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, good.
Okay. Which
Am I
side?
hypnotized? Sorry.
And sleep. No. That's it. Good night, everybody. All right. Which side was I standing on when you think he felt most comfortable? His left.
This way? This way? Or this way? This way.
Okay, so what was it?
Do I don't know.
Are you serious? Okay, so this is interesting. Okay, so from his internal perspective, it wasn't as intense. From my observer perspective, I agree with the majority of you, which felt that this side, where we're at right now, was better. Is that correct? Okay, so different experience, internal frame of reference, external observer perspective of him, but from my internal experience, I felt better on this side. So what does this mean? It means that if you're having a hard time connecting with someone, you need to change sides. It's that simple. Why? Because we have a bias left and right. There's a bias left and right. It's not always the case, but most often you're biased to the side of which is your dominant side. But you're,
Sorry. Without being on the mic.
Okay. So here's what you do. If you're having a hard time connecting with someone, and you're like if we're over here, and it's just not working, man. Like something is not working right. And so I'm like this, I'm like, this is kind of douchey. I don't know. It's not working out. So we'll just, like, I would say, I'm going to go grab a drink of water. You go get your drink, go to the boys' room, do whatever you need to do. And then you come back and you stand on this side and see what happens. Like if you couldn't bond on the other side, walk away, reset, recalibrate, or it's actually creating neutrality. Come back and see if the bias changes on this side. I swear it's this simple. Want to know something really cool for a relationship? If your sleeping partner is always on one side of the bed, you guys are having a hard time, switch sides of the bed. Yeah, it's like getting strange without doing anything bad. I'm kidding, come on. Okay. I just said that, yeah.
You sure did.
I'm going to get in trouble.
We went there.
I'm going to get in trouble.
Now we've gone
I
to
told
politics and sex.
Yeah.
Cover anything else?
I know. We're just,
You know what's interesting, by the way?
Yeah.
Is that I found myself, after we just, because I was obviously messing around when I first came out.
Yeah.
But I found myself, if you just look at how I'm...
You're orienting.
how I'm
Okay,
standing,
and I did the same thing.
that I'm actually slightly shifted
Yes.
this way.
Yeah.
And I think this I was almost
Yeah.
guarded.
Well, you'll see people doing it too. They're going to be like this. Hey, what's up? How's it going? Yeah, yeah. And because they're trying to get comfortable because there's a bias. Allow it to happen. Mutate. Have it like osmosis.
Do I start neutral then?
Well, you know what?
Curious about
I would just go,
Right.
hey,
Because this is too much.
well, this is, you're invading my space here a little
This is
bit.
aggressive.
Okay.
This
Yeah. Okay.
is-
This is a great thing.
Yeah.
This is not part of my presentation, but it's really awesome.
But it's
The reason why that works is this is confrontational.
Right.
Here we're a team. We're working together.
And way closer physically.
We're on the same side trying to solve or communicate about the same thing. So that's more about linguistics and body language, but it's a little off topic, but it really matters a lot. If you're parents, again, we were talking about parents earlier, when you are trying to talk to the child about something, and you're like each on each side of them, and they're and you're in the superior angle looking downward. But if you're together like this, and you say, Skippy, we're concerned about your grades, and we love you.
His kids are from the 50s.
Yeah. And Buffy, too. Skippy and Buffy. Anything that ends in the Y. So it's together we're trying to solve the problem rather than attacking it from both sides.
Do you squat down and do that?
You can do that as well. Yeah, you can do that as well because it's showing congruency. Yeah. All right. So here's what we're going to do. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. All right. So it's so simple, right? It's so simple, but man, does it really, really work. So now all you guys are going to be coming up to me going, hey, what's up? It's nice to meet you. You're just going to be like, if I could dance like Legacy, it'd be awesome. I'd make you move all over the place. All right, so here's what we're going to do. I want to do this in an orderly fashion because we have a lot to get through in about 14 minutes. Stand up next to the person that's already next to you. So just stand up. Take everything out of your hands. Just notice where you're at. Try to partner up. If there's an odd number, try to even it out. We're going to do this real quick. Notice how you feel standing next to that person. Just choose a side. It doesn't matter which one you start with. Just choose a side, and just have a little bit of a conversation. All right, now switch sides and have a similar conversation, not a continuation, but a replication. All right. Okay. All right, you guys. Whoa, I lost control. Hey, someone whistle. I can't whistle. Thank you. All right, you guys have a seat. Have a seat. How many of you felt more comfortable on your left side? More comfortable on your left side. All right, you guys, we got to regain control here. How many of you felt more comfortable on your right side? Interesting. It is hard to see up here with the lights, but I'm guessing it's about half and half. Is that about right, what you see? That makes sense. We have a left and a right side. So now you know this is so simple. If you're negotiating business deals, if you're trying to hook up in the bar later tonight, whatever it is, figure out what side is going to work best for you. It works in everything we do in life. Is that cool? It's so simple. It's so simple. Okay. I love this picture. This is why there are two truths, in most cases, at least two perspectives on any one thing. So imagine that a light is projecting on this and that it's bouncing off the wall there. So from each perspective, from the left and the right, they're both correct. They're both correct. So it doesn't mean that one's right and one's wrong, good or bad. They're both right. So make sure, sometimes our eyes deceive us, our biases definitely deceive us. So make sure that you have all the available information. Oh yeah, Facebook deceives us too. Someone was alluding to it yesterday, I believe. It's called EdgeRank, right? It's the algorithm in Facebook that determines what's in your newsfeed and what comes to the top of your newsfeed. Have you ever had someone say, politics, oh yeah, we're going there again, how can that person be ahead? Or how can that person do this? Or how can they say that? Because all I see is, have you done that? How can these people believe that this candidate is blank? All I see is, this is because of the EdgeRank. It is an unconscious bias because of an algorithm in Facebook. And some of you, I'm guessing, may not know this exists. If you guys who do Facebook ads know how it exists. So what happens over time, because Facebook wants you to have a good user experience, they start showing you more of things that you like and comment and share. Because they know if you have a good experience and like and comment and share more things, you're also likely to click more ads, which increases Mark Zuckerberg's bank account. It's a fact. So they want you to have a good user experience. And by the way, Google does this, but they do it a little differently. But with Facebook, they have so much data on you that they can really customize your experience. But when they customize your experience, they're creating bias unconsciously to you. So be aware of that. When you're going through your news feed and you think, hey man, all I see is this. How can people even consider this politically? You don't have all the available information. You just don't. Is this good? Yeah. All right. You guys are going to be like so highly aware. This is interesting. Medical students being interviewed on a rainy day are less likely to pass their oral examination because the oral examiner, how would you like to have that job title? I'm sorry, that was incredibly biased. The oral examiner will transfer his or her opinion and feeling from the rainy day onto that candidate doing the oral exam, and they're less likely to pass their oral examination. Now, what I don't know about the study, which would change the bias, is was it a bad stormy day? Was there thunder? Was there lightning? Were they in a room where they had a big glass window and they could see the rain? Or was it bad traffic coming in, and because of the rain, they could hear it on the roof, and that changed their perspective as well. So those are all the little factors that change. You know, like when you see a study and you're like, there's no way that's true. What are the factors that change the bias of the study? We don't know. But fundamentally, the science shows that this is true. So make sure that when you're making decisions in your business, you're not affected by the atmospheric conditions. Check the weather before setting your next mastermind meeting. Affinity bias. When we have an affinity towards something or someone, it's a bias. And it impacts our business decision-making process. How we recruit. We might be biased to think, who's better for the job? We're biased about work allocation. Oh, this kind of person should do this kind of job because they're blank. That may not be the case. It might be because of our previous unknown, unconscious bias. Performance. Because we were biased in our selection of these job task allocation, the performance may suffer because of what we thought was best for our business may not be because of those reasons. You know how older adults are always, well, not always. That was too specific. More commonly, a victim of money scams. There's a reason for that, because as statistically, older adults feel more confident about their financial decisions and their money. But statistically and historically, it's proven that they have less of an understanding about their money. And so they become a victim because the people who victimize them are aware of this. Now, what would Grant Cardone say about this? Who's got my money? These old people got to know about my money. What would Ty Lopez say about this? You know, after I lived with the Amish, I was talking. Hang on. Oh, it gets better. After I lived with the Amish, I was talking with my mentor, Joel Salatin. And he says, Ty, it's not about the Lamborghinis, but it's about the knowledge that you get from all the books. Knowledge. And that will reduce your bias. I would impersonate Cole, but he'll never ask me back on stage. No. Okay. I gotta go quick here, but this is a true story. I'm getting closer to 50, so I've been getting Botox done. Otherwise, I look like one of those Shar-Pei dogs. True story. So I've been doing this for a couple years, and I went to go do it about a week ago. And the nurse, they want you to go through all these facial expressions so they can see where put the injections in, right? And she says, I want you to frown. And I've been doing this for like 3 years, and I'm like, she says, no, you look constipated. And I said, frown. I said, frown. And I realized that bias had kicked in, that I didn't know how to frown. I said, use another word. I didn't understand frown because I hadn't done that. And so does that mean that I'm biased and I haven't been expressing myself properly? Or is it good that I haven't been able to do that? That makes me happier. But remember what we learned before about observing other people, and that creates bias? What happens if you can't express yourself fully? The prefrontal cortex of the brain was developed later during our evolutionary process with the neural system, and it is designed in part to interpret human emotions and facial characteristics. That's also why people who get punched in the head a lot, like a boxer, have a hard time with personal relationships. True story. But if you can't express yourself fully, you may have a hard time expressing yourself in a way where people can interpret you, so there isn't bias in how you feel and what you want them to feel and experience. So I had some fun with this. That is a true story. So next time I am going to look like a Shar-Pei, and you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. Some of you guys are in your 20s, you're like, I'm not doing that crap. All right. So optimism bias. I love that picture. The wonders of a Google image search. So here's the crazy thing. People who are overly optimistic don't live as long as those who have the right balance of optimism and realism. They literally, the people that live every day like they've been at Burning Man, and everything is just rainbow unicorn farts, and that's it. And that's their whole world. They have optimism bias. They want to believe that the future is more optimistic or better than the past. And sometimes that's true and sometimes not. But you need the right dose of realism and optimism to where you can make the best possible decisions. So there is a bias towards optimism. Have the right balance. Realism plus optimism equals success and better judgment, and less rainbow unicorn farts. So, oh yeah, we're going there. Prejudice versus bias. What's the difference? A lot of times people use those interchangeably. Prejudice is, I'm right and they're wrong. Bias is, I prefer steak to the chicken. It's a preference. Prejudice is, I'm right, they're wrong. This is right, that's wrong. Bias is a preference. Huge difference. Huge difference. Prejudice shuts off possibility. Bias is a preference. Can you read that text there? I wasn't sure. And I also try to make this as neutral as possible, but I'll read it for you. Cue the 6 o'clock news music. Good evening, it's 6 o'clock, and here's what we want you to think. Right? Programming by the media. Yes, there's a lot of this. And I tried to make that as neutral as possible. I don't know who this gentleman is. It didn't have any signa of any news agency, so I tried to make it as neutral as possible. Here's what I want you to do. I have to move quickly here. Don't do this right now. Write it down. Get an app for each of these news feeds. I dare you. And before you make any decision, political, anything. Right now it's political because we're 10 days out or something like that. And here's the other bias. When you open these to find out the truth, you will default to probably to the one that you think is most aligned with your current reality because there'll be less bias in your opinion. Start with the one that is what you believe is to be in most opposition to your current reality. Download all of these, and I would also suggest getting some from Europe and things like that, because they have a completely different perspective, especially of our political system. I think they referenced it to a circus. It's true. So please do this. Please do this. Go to the App Store at some point today and do this. And before you go, you see something and you're like, let me see what all the other people say. Then you're closer to the truth, but it's still not the truth, but you'll have less bias. Okay, got to move quickly here. Superiority bias. 85% of people think they get along well with others. That'd be nice. Not necessarily true, perhaps. 70% have strong leadership ability. Here's the best one. 93% of people think they're in the top 50% for driving. Now, my math is not strong, but I'm pretty sure that that doesn't compute. We all think that we're a little better than the other person. Not necessarily so. All right, I'm going to move quickly here. What's wrong with this sign? What's the bias? What is it? Yell out. Men are on top. Men on top would be a superior position. Men are right. No. That's not what it says. Bias. Okay. Which one's a girl? Okay. Which one's a boy? This is also part of what's called synesthesia, when we start combining different sensations. Synesthesia. Where's the bias? What's the bias? That's right. One is a nurse, one is a doctor. The doctor, based on societal norms and bias, the doctor would be in a higher ranking position and probably earn more money. Although, as we've learned today, they're probably also in the highest tax bracket. And don't have the necessary write-offs, and they should become an entrepreneur. Okay, any UFC fans out there? Yeah. Okay, so the lady on the left is Amanda Nunes. She's a current bantamweight UFC champion. The one on the right is Ronda Rousey. She's the one who started this whole women's craze for mixed martial arts. Why is this bias? Because about a year ago, Ronda had a left high kick to her jaw and broke her jaw and knocked her butt to the canvas, and she was out for a year. There's been a lot of other women who have done very, very well trying to work their way up to a title contention. This fight is coming up in Las Vegas. Ronda is a huge draw. The bias is that Ronda will be a bigger draw. They'll sell more tickets and pay-per-view and make more money. So there's a financial bias there by the organization. What's the bias to the fighters who have been trying to work their way up the ranks? Normally, you don't have the ex-champion come right back. You got to work your way back up. That's the process in combat sports. So it's bias against the athletes who have worked their butt off, and these people work hard. And now there's bias against them. They're not going to make as much money, they're not going to get as much fame, and they're not going to have the same endorsement deals. So there's a financial bias as well. Yes. I am biased. That is my French bulldog, Lily. She is the most beautiful puppy in the world. She gives me kisses every morning. And I don't care what you say. All right. So you guys, listen. Bias exists. It always will. But when we become more and more aware of it, we can reduce the negative ramifications it has on our life. So, I'm John. I'm still biased, but hopefully a little bit less. And I hope the same for you. Thank you so much.